What was once a bloodline of vital grains and goods for the southern United States is now a long, interconnected network of trains that travel throughout the country. Gone are the days of railroads having multiple gauges throughout the state of Georgia, now just sticking to the standard 4 foot, 8.5 inches. Rather than mostly cotton and grains, nowadays the South mostly sees intermodals and autoracks traveled along the rails with the occasional coal train. In this series of videos, we'll look at some of Norfolk Southern's Georgia division lines that operate within the great Peachy state. While not as busy as the Chicago line or the Transcons, the railroads here make up for it in some very scenic shots that are worth the wait. So sit back and enjoy this video of Norfolk Southern's North Atlanta District. We begin at Mableton, the eastern point of this line before Atlanta, where we catch NS 208, an intermodal train coming from Austell and heading to Garden City, Georgia. This train will work to the Atlanta yard to average drop off a few cars before making it to Garden City, which is close to the port in Savannah, Georgia. It is likely that several of these cars will be dropped off at the port to be unloaded and shipped out to their final destination. Now we catch NSG 91, coming from Inham Yard heading to the Whittaker Intermodal Facility in Austell. A lot of these G trains are local and go back and forth between Austell and Atlanta, constantly switching out cars between the yards to build trains coming out of the intermodal facility. The new facility costed over $100 million and opened in 2001. The goal of the facility was to ease truck traffic across the interstate system within Georgia, and with the large number of containers the intermodal facility sees, it wouldn't be surprised if this facility exceeded that expectation. We continue westward to Austell, Georgia, a popular visiting spot since it is the funnel for all Norfolk Southern traffic going to Atlanta. I couldn't get the train symbol for this train, but I presume it was heading back to one of the automotive plants in Chattanooga for Volkswagen or Nissan. At Austell, the tracks between Dalton and Macon, Georgia were erected by the East Tennessee, Virginia and Georgia Railroad, or the ETV&G, while the Alabama division that branches off to the west of Birmingham, Alabama, was erected by the Georgia Pacific Railway. The ETV&G built the line in 1882 after buying the Macon and Brunswick Railroad in 1881 to connect the M&B in Macon to the ETV&G in Dalton. However, the railroad foreclosed and was operated by the Richmond Terminal Company from 1887 to 1892, where 2 years later the railroad was rolled into the Southern Railway. Georgia Pacific also suffered the same fate in 1894, and consequently, when the Southern merger with the Norfolk and Western to create the Norfolk Southern in 1982 went through, all trackage in Austell was now owned by Norfolk Southern. Here's NS-64H, a loaded ethanol train coming from Chicago, heading to the Citgo Petroleum Facility in Westover, Georgia. Ethanol is used as an oxygenating additive in gasoline to make it less pollutive. Almost all gasoline nationwide in the United States has about 10% of ethanol in it. This replaced the polluting MTBE additive that was the original replacement to lead. Here we catch a power move from NSG-92 going between Whittaker and Atlanta. It seems that the crew has done a lot of switching out of Austell a few hours ago and forgot to turn the lights out on the trailing unit. Up next is a hotshot ethanol train heading to Westover, Georgia. The Inman Yard isn't so clogged up this time around, allowing the train to proceed at track speed through Atlanta. We then head north to Powder Springs, just north of the intermodal facility. Right as I pulled into the public park, the crossing began going off, which left me with no choice but to record from the park. It snuck up on me because I didn't realize this was one of the few crossings in Georgia with a quiet zone. However, I will say that it turned out to be a nice shot anyways, albeit blown out a little bit. Here we have NS 177, a manifest originating from Elkhart, Indiana, and arriving in Macon, Georgia to be classified at the Hunt Yard. With better luck at Powder Springs, we catch NS 215 coming from Chicago's Calumet Yard down to Whittaker. While the sun isn't as bright, we do get to hear the train at track speed as it screams through the curve into the facility. The only horn we'll be hearing out of this train is a couple crossings over in Huron, Georgia. Moving north about a mile, we enter into the town of Huron, about the same size as Powder Springs. We catch NS 733, a daily coal train coming from Juliet, Georgia and heading to Memphis, Tennessee. This high-quality bituminous coal is mined near the Cumberland Plateau and Cumberland Mountain regions in Tennessee, and this train delivers coal to the Schure Electric Generating Facility in Juliet, Georgia. This is an empty train coming from the facility and is on its way back to Memphis, where the BNSF will take over the train to get the cars loaded at the mine. Therefore, 90% of these RWSX trains will be equipped with BNSF power. I kept a lot of this train in the video, since you could hear it slowly wind to a stop to allow a train into the siding at CP Clark ahead before it could continue north. A couple miles north, and we're still in Huron, but at the south end of CP Clark, just entering Paulding County. There's not much here in this part of the town, just a few houses and a storage unit facility. For not being in Michigan at this time, it sure feels like I'm in Detroit with the amount of autorack trains that come through Georgia. I didn't realize how many foreign automakers had their plants down here in South, albeit only a few in Georgia. There are plenty in the surrounding states. Finding another spot worthy of filming took a while. After Huron, Dallas has a lot of overpasses and underpasses, and where there were grade crossings, they had a lot of car traffic noise that made it hard to justify filming there. I chose to drive about 20 miles to Braswell, Georgia, a remote part of the state smack dab in the middle of a thick forest. Here we get a good look at intermediate signals here. Since the signal is between CP Finch to the north and CP McPherson to the south, these signals will default to approach, since the signals guarding the control points are displaying a stop indication. This is a very windy and hilly section of the railroad, where it constantly goes between 900 and 1,000 feet above elevation, peaking out every 7 to 8 miles. From CP Clark to Dallas at milepost 118, the mainline speed is 50 miles per hour. After that, the speed limit remains at 30 miles per hour to let trains navigate the curves safely. This was not the original alignment, as the Southern had built their only tunnel here somewhere in Braswell that is not at this location. With the tunnel not tall enough to accommodate today's double-stack trains, and the wet soil making the ground extremely unstable, this route, cutting through Braswell Mountain, was the better option. Thanks to the uphill elevation going north, you get a big heads up for northbound trains, as you can hear the engines roar up the hill with the crest just past the signals. Our next train is NS 215 from Chicago to Atlanta. Note that the signal on the siding track is now red, indicating that a southbound train is approaching. The other side of the signal is displaying a clear indication, since this train is cleared through CP McPherson. A little more cloud cover and we can get a better view of the signals. While not my ideal type of scenery for shots I like to take, it's better than having completely overcast skies, thinking it's going to rain and ruin your entire day. This is a unique situation that I got to experience here. NS-223, a daily intermodal train from Kansas City, Missouri to Atlanta, is cleared through CP Finch and McPherson. However, it will not be the first train we see today. NS-223 was having issues going around the curve just beyond the shot, and the crew could not figure out what was going on for a while.
Appreciate it. Let me know there, over 52Q, over. Two in ahead of you there. Main 1, Rogers Finch having some issues. If you would, let me know when you get them. If you want, well, we get them behind. Let me know if you can get them stopped. Main 2 on. Andrew Brown, you on 2? So you need Oak McPherson behind that 223 to get his lead unit. Let's see here. Can you say you need about 10-15 minutes?
While 223 gets their issues figured out, the dispatcher has just lined 52Q around 223. This is a grain train heading to Fry's Farms in Surrey, Georgia, bringing in grain to be processed. 52Q was originally supposed to wait for 223 to pass. However, with the technical difficulties 223 is experiencing, 52Q fires up their engines to get up to track speed as quickly as possible to get down the tracks to prevent a bottleneck.
Go ahead.
Loaded up for now. It's showing no battery jog for whatever reason. I'm not sure why on that.
Tell you what, just to be on the safe side, let's go ahead and swap those MU cables between these two engines, if you would.
About that earlier when I saw that train line thing. Yeah, I'll swap the MU cables and see if it's still loaded. See if I can manage it.
Yeah, if you have any more problems with it, just let me know, but we'll try to go up with that.
Alright. Understand. Appreciate the help. We'll let you know.
Bye.
what y'all got going on out there? Over.
I'm not sure what happened to my second unit. Apparently it quit loading for some reason. Went through, reset it, and we're back on the move now.
They gave you an option to reset, and now you're back on the move.
At the moment, I talked to Mock about it. We couldn't really figure out what the problem was, but it is loading and we are moving again.
Alright, thank you.
It looks like swapping the EMU cables between the two engines worked out. Now with the problem alleviated, the conductor returns to the cab and 223 can continue its journey into Atlanta. The first few cars at the front of this train are trailers for semi-trucks to haul shipping containers in. These will most likely be dropped off at Whiptaker, where they will be used to load intermodal crates onto semi-trucks to be sent out to their final destinations. Now with the two southbounds clear out of Braswell, we get a northbound autorack train heading to Chattanooga. Waiting a few hours from the show, I presume he was waiting on the two southbounds to get out of the way before the autorack could proceed. Later in the season, we come back with sunny skies, and with it being at the end of April, the trees are coming back to life. Albeit it's a little windier today than I prefer. Here we have southbound 347 from Chattanooga to Atlanta. Part of me wishes that I would have stayed down here during the summer to have much better shots with the trees that are showing some life with leaves and plants. However, life throws things at you that need to be taken care of first. Also, I probably would not have enjoyed the high heat mixed with the high humidity during the summer of 2018. Arriving at milepost 106, we're in CP Flinch at Rockmart, Georgia, an area with a mid-sized downtown center surrounded by big mom-and-pop farms. Here we see NS 347 curving around a nice scenic S-curve at 30 miles per hour. Timetable calls for 45, but because the engineer knows that they'll have to slow down to 30 to snake through the curves at Braswell Mountain, they might as well just start to slow down now, and then that way they don't need to apply so much braking power. The rest of the railroad from this point on northward to the Tennessee border does not have any crazy curves as seen between Dallas and Braswell, hence the higher speed limit. Moving a couple miles north, we catch Norfolk Southern 224, the counterpart to 223 going from Inham Yard to Kansas City's Volts Yard. Here we get to see the train knock down the intermediate from clear to stop, It's not a Southern original signal, but it's a lot better than nothing. "10 miles north, we reach Argonne, Georgia with an autorack train that I barely missed. This was an unexpected stop, as I thought this stop wouldn't be very good until I saw headlights down the track. I barely had time to pull over before the gates started descending. After all that, I still think it was a shot worthy of taking." Moving a couple miles north, we reach Silver Creek. Just past the signal is the Y that starts CP green. This is where NS's Cedartown district in the Alabama division merged together and continued to Chattanooga. The Cedartown district was originally built by the Chattanooga, Rome, and Columbus Railroad in 1888. The CR&C underwent several purchases before winding up in the hands of Central Georgia in 1901. It became a subsidiary of the Southern Railway in 1963. The Southern then merged the C of G, the Savannah and Atlanta, and the Wrightsville and Tenniel Railroad in 1971 to create the Central Georgia Railroad. Today, the railroad still exists, but only on paper, as it is operated by Norfolk Southern since the acquisition of the Southern Railway. This is similar to how the Grand Trunk Western, the Illinois Central, and the Wisconsin Central still exist on paper, but are operated by Canadian National. The signal we see here protects the Y and a double crossover, hence the need to display all possible indications on the system with a 3-head full-mast signal. As we hear the horn blowing in the distance, I figured out why NS 174 was taking a long time to arrive.
You see a horse and a mule on the tracks out there. That's about the 324, didn't you? We just got a call from the local police saying that somebody's horse and mules that got loose out there. Norfolk Southern.
Now a mile north, we are officially in CP Green. There's not much here except for a manual siding, evidently used for storing maintenance of way equipment. I wish I had kept this first shot that you're seeing right now, but regretfully opted moving on the other side of the road and not capturing the gates in action. I kick myself to this day for missing such an opportunity. Here's our train, NS56G, heading into Loudon, Tennessee with a loaded grain train. Tennessee has a ton of grain facilities, and a lot of processors and distributors are in the state of Georgia. That means if you sit around on the Norfolk Southern long enough in Georgia along this line, you're bound to see a grain train sometime during the day.
No defects.
Moving up north, we arrive at Lindale, inside of CP Findlay, a mid-sized town that oddly had a parking lot specifically for people wanting to watch the trains here. Here we see NS-177, a manifest train from Elkhart, Indiana, heading down to Macon, Georgia. This train has worked Muncie, Indiana, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now all that's left for it is to make its final stop in Macon, Georgia. Trackage between mileposts 87 to 84 used to be single track. The control points were also configured a little differently. Lyndale used to be the border between control points Bryce at milepost 90 and Lyndale at milepost 84. Norfolk Southern began laying track down in 2008 to extend the siding and finished the project in 2009, and now instead of the siding being 12,467 feet or 2.4 miles long, it's now 29,568 feet or 5.6 miles long. This eliminated the need for CP Lyndale to exist, and the signals guarding the former control point were taken down. The turnout going into CP Lyndale was where the intermediate signals are today. Presumably this was done so that the longer trains could be parked on the siding to let higher priority trains through at a faster rate. With the border of CP Finley being less than 2 miles away, a clear intermediate means that the train has been cleared through onto the main track out of CP Finley. Even though nothing is occupying the track ahead of the signal, the intermediate on the siding track will remain a restricting indication since the turnout is lined against the siding track, and any trains on the siding must stop at the signal protecting control point. It is easy to tell which track is the siding and which track is the main line. In most cases, the mainline track signal will only have one head, since they go straight through it in the turnout, while the siding track will have at least 2 heads, since it needs to give proper indications for diverging routes. On a later date, I had tried to catch NS 180 to get a close shot of their very few 8-inch lights still operating on the line today. However, right as the gates finished descending, the rain started coming in, and that was my call to end it for the day. I was still able to get a close-up shot of the lights, but the beginning shot of the train didn't turn out oh so well. I managed to catch NS 54G with Norfolk Southern's Wabash Heritage Unit. This is 1 out of 20 of Norfolk Southern's heritage units, commemorating all the railroads that once traveled along the rails now owned by Norfolk Southern.
Norfolk Southern, milepost 84.1. Track 1, no defects.
About 12 miles ahead, and we're just north of downtown Rome. We're just outside the spur for the U.S. biofuels plant, where tank cars carrying biodiesel are ready to be shipped out to bios. Waste oil is delivered by truck to be processed into biodiesel, one of their main products. Biodiesel can be used in place of petroleum diesel and is a good way to recycle used vegetable oil. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the switching operations today, as NS-702, a loaded coal train from Chicago bound for their Sure electric plant, zooms past with another heritage unit on the NDPU. A few miles north, and we arrive at the border of CP Pinson to the north and CP Berwyn behind us. 701 northbound has a diverging approach, meaning that the 701 will go into the siding to let the cement train on the main line pass through. A few minutes go by and 701 gets an upgrade to a diverging clear, meaning that the cement train is cleared to turn out up ahead, and that 701 can now simply pass around the cement train on the siding, while the cement train stops at the signal on the main line, waiting for 701 to clear. Up ahead is another border between the two control points, the cantilever protecting CP Reeves to the north, and a standard 3-headed mast signal protecting CP Pinson to the south. Here we get to see a standout turnout up close. The black box just to the right side of the tracks is what moves the points. This turnout can be automatically thrown by the dispatcher, or with authorization and unlocks from the dispatcher, can be thrown manually. The propane tank is at every turnout, since it does get cold enough occasionally in Georgia for ice to form inside the turnouts. These supply heat to points so that any accumulated ice or snow can be melted away without having to dispatch workers to manually clean it out, saving both time and resources. For obvious reasons, a generator is also placed at each turnout to provide backup power in case of utility power is lost. Here we get NS701, another coal train. On the Norfolk Southern, a lot of coal trains are lumped into the 700 series, mainly used for limestone and coal trains throughout the Norfolk Southern system. Do note that the train is further away than it looks. 701 still has about 3 miles to go before he gets here. Up next is NS371 from Chattanooga to Rome. He's taking a few minutes to arrive since he must stop at the other end of the siding before continuing. 371 has been instructed to wait on the main and let 322 pass on the siding. Now that the turnout is lined for the diverging route, NS 322 can now proceed past 371 and continue its journey to Chattanooga. The next stop is Calhoun. This spot threw me off at first because when I found it on Google Maps and opened Street View, the other side of the tracks had tons of trees and it looked like a forest. This is when the Street View car went through here in 2007 and didn't come back until November of 2018. Sure enough, when I looked at Google Earth, all the trees on the other side of the tracks were logged out in 2014. We're waiting on NS 223, who still has a little ways to go before he gets here. Here we are in Ricasa, watching NS-177 get upgraded from an approach to a clear indication. Now this is where it gets exciting. CSX had been hogging the diamond up in Dalton, Georgia for a solid 2 hours before CSX ran their train through. This caused multiple trains on the Norfolk Southern system, both north and southbounders, to clog up. I couldn't get a good picture up at Dalton, but there were at least 5 southbounders stacked up on each other with 3 southbounds parked in different sidings along the system. It was not good for Norfolk Southern, but it made for some rapid fast catching. Too bad the sun was setting today. After 177 sees a clear indication, they decide to gun it to get up to track speed. Unfortunately, the camera crashed in the middle of recording, which means I don't have the half end of this train. Jumping to the end, we get to see the next southbound train get their signal, upgrading from a stop to a restricting and then to approach. I wanted to move back to the spot in Calhoun to try to shoot some different angles, so I didn't stay here to see if the southbound went to full clear. Neither did I stay for the northbound in view, since it had no special power or cargo. We're here at Cohuta, the last stop in Georgia before the border into Tennessee is crossed. I couldn't find a whole lot of spots in Tennessee that caught my eye before Chattanooga, so this is where the already long video will end after one more train. This one snuck up on me. I made the mistake of trying to rail fan on Monday, as nothing is really sent out on rail during the weekends, which causes the dead traffic. It meant that I was now going to have to wait for a long time before the train showed up, and when it did, I was not prepared.
Defects.
5 mile post, 23.5, clear. I see 5 out.
Norfolk Southern, milepost 25.0, track 1, no defects.
Our last train is a manifest, most likely making a stop in Chattanooga rather than passing through, judging on the speed the train is going. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. There are more lines that I have filmed in Georgia, and will hopefully find the time to upload those videos in the coming months. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys later.
Milepost 25.0, track 1, no defects.